Oh, this is getting so exciting. Twitter is going to war with Elon Musk. And according to him, the future of free speech could be hanging in the balance. So who comes out on top here? The billionaire spaceman or spaceman, or the woke weirdos in Silicon Valley? As you know, the Tesla CEO last week bought 9.2% of Twitter. Today, he offered to buy the entire ball of wax for $43 billion in cash. That is a major premium on the cost per share, so it's a really good deal for investors. So why the heck does Elon want Twitter so badly? At a TED Talk today in Vancouver, British Columbia, he made his case. Watch. There he is.
Why make that offer?
Well, I think it's very important for there to be an inclusive arena for free speech. Twitter has become kind of the de facto town square. It's just really important that people have both the reality and the perception that they are able to speak freely within the bounds of the law.
He claimed it is not about the Benjamins. Watch.
This is not a way to sort of make money, you know. I think this is, it's just that I think this is, my strong intuitive sense is that having a public platform that is maximally trusted and broadly inclusive is extremely important to the future of civilization.
But you've described yourself.
I don't care about the economics at all.
So what happens if his plan doesn't work out?
In this case, you are not successful in, the board does not accept your offer. You've said you won't go higher. Is there a plan B?
There is.
Do you think he was just saying that, kind of freestyling? Of course, this whole thing isn't sitting well with a lot of the Twitterati. One New York journalism professor compared the move to Hitler's takeover of Germany. Now, that's not extreme. And a columnist at the Washington Post said he was frightened by what might happen. Hey, dum-dum, do you know that Jeff Bezos owns your newspaper? But the strongest reaction is coming from Twitter itself. Our corporate cousins at the Wall Street Journal reporting Twitter has a poison pill option. Essentially, they would flood the market with shares to dilute Elon's stake in the company and potentially ruin themselves financially in the process. That seems like a bad move, all to keep Elon Musk from succeeding in his takeover. So how nasty will this fight get, and whose side are you on? Let's talk about it with tonight's Man Panel. We've got the co-host of the Gary and Shannon Show on KFI AM 640 Los Angeles, Gary Hoffman. Yes, Fox News contributor and host of the Richard Fowler Show. There's Richard Fowler. Hi, Richard Fowler. And we've got comic and host of the Part of the Problem podcast, Dave Smith. So many questions for all the men on the panel. Gary, let's start with the financial implications of a $43 billion offer for Twitter. Why on earth would they turn it down? Is it just because it's Elon Musk?
It's 100% because it's Elon Musk. There's no other reason for them to. Twitter is, if you watch what they've done for the last, say, 6 months, 18 months, Twitter is, I think, the beginning of a downward spiral, and nobody likes to be swirling the toilet. I think that whole idea that you mentioned about the potential poison pill option that they've got of flooding the market with their shares, they know that. They know that this thing is at least being exposed for what it is. As somebody who works speaking every day for a living, the arguments, the continued debate over what is free speech, what constitutes free speech, how free speech makes societies better, I love it. I think it's fantastic. I think we all need to be involved in those discussions every single day because it is so important to our democracy. The idea that you mentioned, Max Boot writing for the Washington Post, that he's frightened by this, he's frightened by somebody like Elon Musk putting a premium on freedom of expression and freedom to say things that you want to say. It's ridiculous to me that somebody would say, for a paper whose new tagline is "Democracy dies in darkness," but he's frightened that someone's going to turn more lights on about Twitter and what goes on in Twitter, specifically the algorithm.
Richard, you're not frightened. You bought some Twitter today, didn't you?
I did, and here's the thing: the stock price went down, even though Elon Musk is offering shareholders about a little bit over $50 a share. The stock price dropped almost 11% today, or excuse me, a couple more, a little less than 11%. But it's an interesting move by Elon Musk. I'm here for it. Herein lies the problem, Kennedy. No, according to reports from many different sources, he doesn't have that amount of cash on hand. So he's going to have to go finance that cash to potentially buy Twitter, and we have to wait to see what happens with the board. So there's a lot of unknowns here before we, throw parties and throw confetti at this idea. Let's figure out if the business mechanics are actually there.
Yes, he's the richest man in the world. I'm pretty sure he'll be able to scrape together $43 billion, even if it's just from other billionaires who hate Jeff Bezos. So I want to go back to that Max Boot quote, Dave Smith. This was his full quote. I am frightened by the impact on society and politics if Elon Musk acquires Twitter. He seems to believe that on social media, anything goes. For democracy to survive, we need more content moderation, not less. Is that what we need for democracy to survive, Dave?
Well, it's really something. This whole thing is really amazing. Like, even if none of this happens, this is just amazing, the spectacle that it's creating, and I hope it all happens, but who knows?
I do
but,
as well.
Right, democracy is so important, and that's why we have to silence people from being able to give their opinions so other people can't hear them. So it's really important that everyone has the right to vote, but we really also don't want them to hear from, say, like the sitting president of the United States or a sitting member of Congress. Those people we want to be kicked off of the platform. But, if I were Max Boot and I had advocated for 7 wars over the last 20 years that had led to millions of innocent people dying and trillions of dollars wasted and nothing but destroyed nations, plus tens of thousands of our own soldiers committing suicide and many wounded and yeah, I'd probably want to silence my opposition as well. What's really amazing about this is that Elon Musk has forced the progressive, neoliberal, and neoconservative establishment to basically say that, yes, they consider the idea of not having control of censorship to be a huge threat to them. And he's also kind of exposed a lot of the more conservative right-wingers who have been saying for a while that actually this is where we deviate from the free market types like myself. We actually need government to come in here and regulate social media in order to solve this problem, which is a very real problem. But all of their proposals for government regulation would just make it worse or not solve it. And here we actually have a potential solution coming from the marketplace. And even if this one doesn't work, who's to say that, Elon Musk and a few of his other billionaire buddies, and there's several of them who also feel the same way he does, maybe they come back with another offer, and maybe this is actually the great solution to online censorship, is that we just need some really rich people who actually believe in free speech to get involved here. This is incredibly exciting.
Who want a proliferation of voices to participate, and not just people who are deemed appropriate by whoever is kind of in power of a social media app or not. But it's not just Twitter where conservatives are getting hosed. Today, the Republican National Committee voted unanimously to withdraw from the Commission on Presidential Debates, accusing the group of bias. Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel is pledging to find fair debate platforms for future Republican nominees. But would Democrats boycott? And could we be looking at a future without presidential debates? Do we really need them, Gary?
I think we do need them. I mean, we talk about the extremes in this country, whether it's super neo-progressives, neoconservatives, like Dave was talking about. You're talking about 6 or 8% on either end of the political spectrum. There's a vast middle of this country that still needs to be able to see and hear those people who are going to be representing us in, whether it's in Congress, in a federal office, whatever it is. I do think we do need debates. But what the Republican National Committee has to do at this point, I like the idea, I stand by the idea that they need to have debates before voting begins, that you don't have people on that debate stage in the form of moderators who have worked for the candidates. But you've got to be able to come up with an alternative. You've got to have, you can't just say, we're going to find a new debate stage that will make sure that everything is fair game. You had better come up with that alternative and not just cross your arms and say, well, I'm taking my ball and I'm going to go home. There's got to be something in the plans.
There have to be more balls, right, Richard?
There definitely has to be more balls in the plans. I agree with everything you just said. And what I would add to that is this. Herein lies the problem with Ronna McDaniels' argument, is this. Look, at the end of the day, you might have a problem with the current debate commission how it is, so that's why you work within the system to fix it. The idea of leaving the commission altogether means that we likely, at this point in time, if the election were happening this year, we would likely not have a presidential debate. And the main contention that they seem to have is they have a problem with some of the moderators. But the last presidential debate, when you had somebody like Chris Wallace, our former colleague, right, who was, everybody can agree is fair and balanced, and the president, former President Trump, had a problem with him because they didn't like the questions, speaks to the fact that it's a little bit more of, I don't really like the questions, I don't like how people are perceiving me as the president, and less about criticism around the debate commission.
No, it wasn't just the moderators. Dave, obviously there are a lot of problems with presidential debates. A lot of people are talking about you running for the Libertarian Party presidential nomination. There are a lot of people who are liberty-minded who would love to see that. But how does someone like you get on the debate stage? The Commission on Presidential Debates exists to keep a duopoly functioning, to make sure that there are not viable third-party candidates who get on stage and challenge the establishment. So should the Republican Party leave the debate commission so something new can rise from the ashes?
Yeah, well, I think that would be great. By the way, for the record, not everybody thinks Chris Wallace is fair and balanced. But anyway, I think the truth is that what you've had over the last few years, right, is that almost third-party type candidates have been drawn into the two big parties because all of the rules are rigged against third parties, right? Yeah. Like Bernie Sanders was essentially a third-party candidate, and Donald Trump was essentially a third-party candidate. They just ran in the Democrat or Republican Party because that's the only way to kind of get on those debate stages and get the ballot access easy and all of this stuff. But from my perspective, I think we're in a whole new landscape, and I think the idea that these presidential debates, I mean, they're very antiquated. I mean, yeah, I agree that I want to hear the candidates speak, but I'd much rather hear both of them go on like the Joe Rogan Experience for 3 hours and answer really honest questions from a regular person and have to give a 10-minute answer rather than hear someone in the corporate press ask them these same boring questions and they lie for a minute and then talk over each other. It's all so to me, I don't know. I mean, if I were to run for something, I don't really care about this. I mean, I can go on Rogan, I can go on Tim Pool, I can go on these shows and talk to millions of people for hours and hours. This is kind of beside the point. The whole problem used to be that we couldn't get our message out unless we got in the corporate press, unless we got on the presidential debates. But for libertarians, those days are over. I think we need to embrace the new world where we have more opportunities than ever before.
All right, well, let's turn those opportunities into action and results. And if we're going to have a bunch of old white guys running against each other, then I want to see what they do in the NFL Combine. I want to see how they do in the 40-yard sprint. And I would also, and I've said this before several times, I want to see both candidates download the Pizza Hut app and order a pizza, and whoever gets it delivered first gets to be president. I'll say it, I said it before, I'll say it again, and it makes me hungry every time. Man panel sticking around, you know why? Because it's game night, that's why.